Hello, and welcome to Space Foundation's 2022 State of Space program. I'm Tom Zullabor, CEO of Space Foundation. When we started the State of Space program in 2019, it was a different environment from what we are experiencing today. In fact, looking back, it would be safe to say that we were at the dawn of a new era for the global space community. Project Artemis and our efforts to return to the moon were in their infancy. The Hubble Space Telescope continued to reveal mysteries in our surrounding universe. Commercial resupply missions to the International Space Station were occurring with regularity, and commercial space industry operations were starting to garner more interest by media, investors, and the public globally. 3 years later, the first SLS is stacked on the pad to launch this year for our first return to the moon in generations. The James Webb Space Telescope is now unfolding at L2 to reveal more mysteries about our universe. Commercial companies are now carrying astronauts and private citizens into space. And a $447 billion global space economy continues to grow in size, investment, and employment. All the while, the world dealt with an unprecedented global pandemic that hampered economic growth and expansion. These are great times for the global space ecosystem. With 90 countries now operating in space, dozens of companies with orbital access capabilities, and growing global demands for talent to keep all these efforts going, it is easy to understand why we at Space Foundation call this the era of access and opportunity. Want further proof? Look at any news site, newspaper, or media outlet, and you'll find more expansive coverage of space today than you did during the Apollo era, with far more diverse players than singular superpowers competing for supremacy. Look at the continued and uninterrupted patterns of growth in government spending and private investment that are becoming more expansive than at any other time in our history. Look at the demands by nation-states as well as citizens for increasing access, understanding, and imagery that space provides to monitor the safety, health, and well-being of our planet, as well as the natural disaster and national security threats that are ever present. These are the facts of a vibrant and diverse ecosystem, and if done right, will allow everyone to find their place in this dynamic environment. While the public will always envision rockets and astronauts when they think of space, the truth is that space is a critical infrastructure driving innovation for life here on Earth. In fact, there are more space activities happening here on Earth than in orbit around our planet. Let me explain. Without space, we could not begin to understand the effects or impacts of climate change, a challenge no country or continent is immune from. Without space, commerce that creates jobs, builds economies, and invests in technologies that shape daily life would not be possible. Without space, security as well as preparations for communities from weather events and natural hazards or military and cyber threats would not be possible. Without space, no critical infrastructure anywhere could operate or fulfill its services or responsibilities to citizens. But with space, all these things and much, much more are possible. For as different as all of us are, we are all bound by common hopes and aspirations for a future where peace and prosperity are the values that bring us all together. Today's era of access and opportunity is not bound by traditional approaches of solitary nations or enterprises going it alone to fulfill bold missions, but rather we are establishing new relationships with greater possibilities for success as partners and investors. This is not just among countries, but also among companies, communities, and cultures. Unfortunately, there are some leaders that see what we do by investing precious resources and energies in space activities as taking away from addressing the challenges that every country and community face here on Earth. At Space Foundation, we would argue that the investment of resources and energies in these pursuits are the catalysts that will drive and create solutions we all want and need for our planet, our countries, and our communities. It should also not be a question of one path versus another. Rather, it's a question of how we will work together to create understanding, build relationships, and address challenges that are far more common to one another than we may have previously realized. Today's State of Space program will showcase the diversity of thought, approaches, and leadership that are unfolding in this country and around the world. Much like we do at every space symposium, Space Foundation is honored to host an array of leaders from the international, national security, investment, insurance, and private sectors to let you hear firsthand from them what is happening in their immediate universe. The views they present are their own, but they speak to multiple perspectives that we need to be aware of as the global space ecosystem expands. For Space Foundation, we see three key facets that deserve our utmost attention. They include defining space as a critical infrastructure, prioritizing workforce and education initiatives, and establishing norms of behavior. First, let's discuss defining space as a critical infrastructure. There is not a continent, country, company, or community that is untouched by what we do with space, either in orbit or back here on Earth. That dependence and the interdependence of every other critical infrastructure is linked to space. A day without space access and space-to-Earth technologies would be catastrophic to the world's security, economies, and ways of life. Despite these operational realities, space is not officially classified as a critical infrastructure. Whether the reasons are bureaucratic or political, we are well past the time for governments here and around the world to embrace the facts and classify space for what it is, a critical infrastructure where dependence grows greater every day. Global economies like the space economy, already valued at more than $447 billion and forecast to surpass $1 trillion plus before the end of the decade, are not possible without becoming an infrastructure themselves. That has been proven time and again. Space Force is in operation, a dedicated space ISAC is in place, and more governments, countries, and companies with direct space operations requires the official declaration to be made. Space is the critical infrastructure that will redefine our lives in the 21st century. Let's call it and classify it as such. Next is prioritizing workforce and education initiatives. While we may seek to classify specific assets and networks as infrastructures, it would be short-sighted to ignore the driving forces and energies that make infrastructures operate. It all starts with people. Without the necessary talent and the diversity of talent, no one is going anywhere in space, with space, or bringing space innovations to the benefit of life on Earth. Engaging new workers at all levels in multiple skills and trades will be the most challenging and competitive environment the global space community will encounter for the foreseeable future. The space community has never been short in its ability to inspire generations of all ages by the work that it does. This year promises to be another with significant moments to come, but growing global demands for new networks, architectures, launch and recovery capabilities, environmental monitoring, and more are all at risk with a limited pipeline of talent to make those aspirations a reality. Solutions to these challenges rest as much in boardrooms and kitchen tables as they do in classrooms. Teachers cannot do this alone. It requires a cultural shift for lifelong learning that crosses boundaries of old if we are going to empower students, engage aspiring entrepreneurs, and foster cross-generational innovators. Every country, company, and community want to be the home port of this talent. For those not willing to make the effort to develop and retain this talent and empower it to reach its fullest potential, the talent will go elsewhere. We live in a mobile world, and the pandemic has only accelerated talent transformation. The challenge before the space community is, what are we going to do to assure the missions we desire are possible? There are already innovative shifts in curricula development, professional training, apprenticeships, and more. But more shifts are necessary, especially shifts that ensure that any person, regardless of where they come from or whomever they may be, can find their place with space. There is space for everyone. And finally, establishing norms of behavior. In the 60-plus years of the world's space adventure, we've taken several momentous steps that have changed history, from Alexei Leonov's first step into the vacuum of space to Neil Armstrong's first boot print on the moon. We've built on those transformative individual achievements. For as expansive as space may be, all of us are operating in a closer and more condensed neighborhood than ever before. A look at a map of low Earth orbit satellites, spacecraft, and other in-orbit materials illustrates the challenge we are seeing unfold before us. In the past year, space stations operated by the ISS partners as well as the Chinese have had to make orbital adjustments to safeguard their crews and structures from harm. Additionally, here on Earth, deorbiting debris from launch vehicles has posed risk to life on Earth. For as meticulous as spacefaring peoples may be in putting a payload and its mission into orbit, we need to be just as meticulous in how and where we operate those payloads and missions to safeguard other operations and people that are in orbit as well as on Earth. Carelessness has consequences. Comprehensive mission stewardship and establishing norms of behavior have always been important, but they become even more important when physical and operational competition in the orbiting neighborhood begins to accelerate. The forecasted launch manifest for 2022 tells us we are in for another record-breaking year. That is positive for a host of reasons, but smart, sustainable, and responsible growth and conduct must be part of the equation. While governments have a role to play here, it is industry that can be the solution drivers for most of these challenging issues. This is why the private sector needs to have a greater voice in establishing the norms of behavior going forward. In conclusion, like a lot of people in the space community, I am genuinely excited by what is happening. We have more countries, companies, and missions than ever before. That more factor is the promise of 2022. We will have more of everything, but as a student of history, there is a lot to learn from eras of prosperity as access and opportunity expand. We simply have to do more. While much can be drawn from history and lessons learned from the recent decades of space exploration, it is in the next series of chapters that we are writing that will define our future and what others say about us in the future. What do you want history to say about us? Think about that for a moment. While history can certainly shape us, it does not have to define us either. That decision is up to us as individuals, as well as prospective partners, but it remains our decision. My challenge to you as prospective history makers is to pursue our collective goals as teams rather than as individuals. The rewards we generate will make us all broader and better, and like the first steps of Leonov and Armstrong, they will stand the test of time. That is foundation building in its greatest form, and it will make all the difference in the world, today, tomorrow, and for years to come. And at Space Foundation, we look forward to working with you in those pursuits because the innovations we advocate for together will be the benefits the world needs here on Earth and beyond. That is history worth making. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Steve Eisenhardt, a Senior Vice President here at Space Foundation, and it's my pleasure today to host this segment of our State of Space 2022. We're joined by Eric Stallmer, Executive Vice President for Government Affairs and Public Policy at Voyager Space Holdings. Eric, I know you've relatively recently joined the company. If you could tell us just a little bit about it, and then from your perspective, how do you see the state of space in 2022?
Great. Hey, thanks so much, Stephen. It's great to be with you today. I felt like it was recently that I joined Voyager, but it's been about 17 months now. And it's been a thrilling roller coaster ride that keeps getting better and better. Voyager is a company that has been acquiring other space companies. And to date, we have 7 companies in our portfolio. Quickly, Altius Systems, Pioneer Space, the Launch Company, NanoRacks, Valley Tech Systems, and Space Micro are our companies. And they're all in a real diverse part of the industry, and they all have niche capabilities that we're excited to kind of vertically as well as horizontally integrate within the Voyager team. So it's been an exciting time working with these companies, acquiring the technology that they bring on board, and the personnel, mostly the personnel. That's been very exciting for us, and having them all working together. That's that part of that, integrating these capabilities, I said, has really been the rewarding part of this. But it's interesting, as you say, the view or the vision of the space industry, in 2022. It's I'm very excited. I'm excited behind us. Not that I know something that others don't know, but I'm hoping we're at the tail end of this pandemic. I think the industry had weathered the storm very well, better than most industries, obviously. And I see really a bright future in a really cross section of different areas in the space industry. So often we look at launch, but there's so much more to the space industry than just launch, and the different market segments that are growing out, and the variety of constellations and commercial space stations and areas like that. So I think 2022 is going to be one of the best years for the space industry yet. So I'm very upbeat about that. I'm upbeat about the interest in capital markets that have been investing in the space industry, and continue to see the industry grow.
Well, let's turn a little bit to what would you consider the biggest challenge facing the operating environment that will require the most attention and resources to address in the coming year?
Well, talent is always a challenge. I think, we have an industry that really encompasses the best and the brightest of people. But I think, with the growing number of space companies that are out there, and the competition for talent, I think we really have to, companies really have to work hard to foster that talent and to hold on to it. And that is a challenge. I think with the hope, a challenge also is the markets, is the capital markets. Unfortunately, the last couple of weeks, there's been a slide in the stock market, and hopefully investors aren't getting scared off and keeping their money on the side, and they continue to invest in a lot of these innovative and really game-changing companies. So I think it's critical to have that continued investment. But I think the companies have to give a return on their investment and deliver on what they're going to say they're going to do, and I think we're starting to see that more and more. So I think that's going to be a critical part of what the growth of the space industry, and especially some of these new technologies that are on the forefront.
We've seen a lot of attention, I think, through a number of reasons in public awareness, public attention about space over the last year. But what's the one issue or condition that you feel is not getting the public attention that it deserves?
I think there's great excitement on the human spaceflight factors that are taking place. The Virgin Galactic ride, and what Blue Origin has done, bringing passengers back and forth to space and making this a little more routine. I think that gets a lot of attention, but I think there's applications out there that are really going to be critical as we move forward. One area that really interests me a lot is the orbital debris, and how do we mitigate the amount of orbital debris that we have, and through programs of active debris removal. I think there's some great companies out there that are working this, and I think they deserve more attention and more funding than they're getting, because I think this is really is going to be a critical part of this growing evolution in space, and we have to be respectful and mindful of the environment that we're working on, and continue to make it sustainable. And I just feel that's an area it might not be getting the attention that it deserves or really warrants. As from the aspect of the responsible actors that are doing things in space and doing it the right way and working with others, and then the irresponsible actors in space, some of these nation states, with their anti-satellite testing that really serves no real point and is only disruptive, to the global space community.
Well, let's turn a little bit instead of disruptors to obviously everything we do is with partners and stakeholders. And ask which is the stakeholder or partner that you and your organization need in 2022 to achieve success?
Personally, we are working very closely with NASA. We were just awarded a contract for commercial LEO destinations. So we are partnering with Lockheed Martin and NanoRacks, NanoRacks being one of our companies, the three of us, and then a lot of other partners in that process of building a commercial space station. And so, the government partner on that will, clearly be NASA, and how we can work with NASA and understanding what some of their needs are, but also, addressing the commercial market needs, because I think it goes hand in glove. Understand, NASA is obviously, as I said earlier, the best and the brightest, and from a government agency perspective, really have been doing it right for all these years, and the engagement they've had most recently with the private sector has just been fantastic. So we're looking forward to doing a lot of work with NASA on that program. But there's obviously other partners, the DoD, with the Space Force, as the Space Force is maturing and understanding their role and mission better and better, and others are understanding as well. I feel that they've been very cooperative to work with, as other agencies inside the Department of Defense have been. So they're going to be a big partner, moving forward as well.
And looking ahead, is there one anticipated mission or event that you and your organization are most looking forward to in the coming year?
Well, I have got a very good friend who's going to be flying up on a SpaceX rocket, Michael Lopez Alegria. He's going to be flying up on the Axiom mission to the space station, where Mike's going to be bringing three other commercial astronauts up to the space station. I'm personally excited about that, but I feel like that opens a lot of new doors. The more access to space that we have, for the general public, I think is a great thing. I think that these continued public-private partnerships are great, and are really going to be game changing for the industry. As the government knows more what commercial capabilities are out there and what the commercial industry can do and the partnerships that they can have. And I'm excited too about industry to industry partnerships that, with some of these companies that one day they're your competitor and the next day they're your partner. And we're seeing this, that we're working really across the board with all different types of space companies, really looking for the best in breed for what we do. So I think you're seeing the barriers of competition are coming down a little bit more, and you're seeing more partnerships, and that is always a good thing in our industry to see that happen.
Well, and I should say, I think we're all excited that we've gotten to the point that we all have some personal friends who have now flown in space, including one of your bosses there at Voyager with Dylan's ride last year, and we all it's changing the atmosphere for all of us. Any final comments that you'd like to offer in terms of things? And again, we'd like to thank you for being with us here today.
No, I want to thank you, Steve, for all the support that the Space Foundation has provided the industry over the years, and certainly, with the Space Symposium coming up here in the next few months. It's such a great venue for getting people together, and really, I think everyone is safe to say looking forward to getting together face to face and without a mask. And I think hopefully we'll see a lot more of that, see faces and handshakes a lot more in 2022 as we move forward and put this behind us. So I'm looking forward to seeing you and all your colleagues in person out in the Springs in a few months.
Thanks again, and look forward to seeing you too. I'm pleased to be joined by Ms. Lisa Campbell, President of the Canadian Space Agency. Lisa, to start things off, from your perspective, how do you see the state of space in 2022?
Well, it's wonderful to be here and great to see you as well. It's a really exciting time to be in the space program. We've been making tremendous advances in science and technology. Industry is trailblazing with new space and commercial activities, and governments continue to be anchor clients with significant mission opportunities. I expect activities in 2022 to continue on this track. It's important to keep in mind we're in an unpredictable situation with the evolving nature of the pandemic, and although the space sector has been very resilient, there are obviously human and supply chain impacts. We're hopeful 2022 will bring a more predictable operating environment. Overall, global space is experiencing exponential growth. The number of space actors and the demand for space services is expected to grow faster than ever before. And I'm sure you've heard the forecast that the global space economy is expected to reach over $1 trillion by 2040. This means that space will contribute even more towards gross domestic product, and that we'll see more high-quality jobs in key STEM areas around the world. New markets will emerge along with growing economic opportunities that will push the boundaries of what space technology currently offers.
And as you look ahead, what do you think might be the biggest challenges facing the operating environment that will require really the most of your attention and resources to address?
The space sector is changing rapidly, and we need to adapt quickly. For instance, there are more players in space than ever. This has been phenomenal for increasing and diversifying opportunities in the space sector. Investments in digitization during the pandemic have also made work arrangements more flexible, and space organizations are competing for talent. That's why we're so focused on creating a strong culture where the well-being of people at the Canadian Space Agency is our top priority. Ensuring they're well supported, motivated, and happy is paramount to ensuring our success. Our brilliant team who innovate and accomplish extraordinary missions are central to Canada's space program. Another area making waves is the growing number of small companies and startups entering the space market. These organizations are full of energy and ambition, and their innovations are sought after around the world. So we're leveraging our infrastructure, our scientific data, and our expertise to support this momentum. All to say, these challenges are really more opportunities for us to adapt and take things to the next level. We want to continue to make Canada a great place to work and conduct business in the space sector and export to the world more of what Canada has to offer.
So last year saw a number of high-profile events that drew a lot of public attention to space. But I was wondering, what do you feel is the one issue or condition that is not getting the public attention it deserves?
How space science and technologies help us here on Earth. An example of this is the tremendous utility satellite Earth observation. It's increasingly fundamental to our daily lives and also to our future. We're increasingly reliant on space technologies for climate action, precision agriculture, maritime surveillance, and more. More than ever, we need the perspective of space to help solve important challenges on Earth like climate change. From space, we can see the big picture of our land, waters, and atmosphere and how they interact and change over time. Space data supports cutting-edge science here on Earth. It helps us understand how our planet works. We're raising the profile of satellite Earth observation, and on January 20th, we announced our Canadian strategy for satellite Earth observation. Our strategy outlines how Canada will take full advantage of the unique vantage point of space to address challenges of our time and frames our work in this domain for the next decade.
In the space industry, we find that everything is done with partners, and I'd be curious who you feel the key stakeholder or partner that your organization needs to achieve success next year.
That's a great question, Steve. We're part of a vibrant space ecosystem in Canada and globally. Scientists, companies, international counterparts. Reality is we need to work with all of our partners in order to achieve our goals. We need scientists to make breakthroughs in their fields. We need industry to take technologies to the next level and commercialize it. We need international partners to advance common priorities and missions, and the broader international space community to come together on rules of engagement in space. We all have a part to play, and it's the people within these organizations that matter. Space is complex and expensive. With more players in space now than ever before, it's important for us to collaborate and not duplicate. We also need to work together to ensure that space remains safe and sustainable for the long term. advancing efforts like those in the United Nations to implement sustainability guidelines and reduce space threats through norms, rules, and principles of responsible behavior are paramount. It's also important that our industry and scientific communities build relationships with one another on an international scale. I'm currently Vice President of Agency Relations and Global Membership at the International Astronautical Federation. Part of my goal is to bring more diversity into the IAF so that we can welcome new players into the global space community, build new partnerships, and leverage one another's expertise for the greater good of humanity.
And finally, a number of things coming up over the next several months. What is the one mission or event that you and your organization are most looking forward to?
There's so much to look forward to this year. With the rest of the world, we're pretty excited about seeing the first images and data from the James Webb Space Telescope. It's the most complex and powerful space telescope ever built, which is an outstanding accomplishment. Canada is so proud to be part of it. The first data that we receive will be a special moment worldwide because it's a symbol of how far we've come and a sign of all the exciting discoveries that are ahead of us. My colleagues and I are equally excited about the Artemis 1 mission because it means that the next phase of space exploration is upon us. This will set the stage for the Artemis 2 mission, which will include a Canadian astronaut, and that'll be a very important moment in Canada's space history.
Well, great. Well, we thank you again for your time today and your contribution to our State of Space segments. Any final comments that you would like to offer before we conclude here?
It's wonderful to be here, and I look forward when we can see one another in person soon.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
We're now joined by Dr. Janet Cavandi, who is the president of Sierra Nevada Corporation's subsidiary, Sierra Space, where she's responsible for the company's space programs, including the Space Chaser plane. Prior to joining Sierra Space, Dr. Cavandi served as director of NASA's Glenn Research Center and also worked at NASA's Jet Johnson Space Center, where she was an astronaut and veteran of 3 shuttle flights, logging more than 33 days in space. Dr. Cavandi, we are grateful to have you with this year's State of Space program.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here.
Dr. Cavandi, with all that you and Sierra Space have on the horizon, what is the state of space?
I think we're, in a really interesting transition period in the state of space. We are at the kind of transition period between a civil space program where NASA and other international governments have really run all of space flight, and all the space missions that at least carry humans have been to a NASA-sponsored International Space Station. And we are starting to transition that to a commercial space enterprise where we already have commercial launches, of course, going to the International Space Station, but we will also eventually transition to a commercially built and operated space station. So more and more companies are getting into this game, seeing the vast potential in our future in space. And as you know, and we will talk about, we are partnered with Blue Origin to build a commercial space station. And then we will take our Dream Chaser space plane and be able to take that to this new commercial space station. We're also visiting the ISS as well next year on our maiden flight of Dream Chaser for a cargo mission. But we are just now, like I said, transitioning from a fully civil sponsored space program to a civil commercial space program to a fully LEO commercial space program within a decade.
So what will be the biggest challenge for Sierra Nevada facing your operating environment that will require the most attention and resources to address?
Actually, the most critical resource today for Sierra Space is employees. We have openings for over 1,000 people out today, and we need very qualified engineers of all backgrounds and technicians to help us build our products, to help us build our new programs. We're looking at new facilities. We're expanding our operations in Florida to be able to process Dream Chaser and refly it once we start that that pattern of launching and landing. And we have 7 missions to the ISS, and we at the same time we're going to be building a crewed version for Dream Chaser, where we can take people to the ISS and or this new commercial space station I talked about. It's called Orbital Reef. So we are in the process of building and hiring and expanding over the next few years.
So you talk about workforce, you talk about the expansion and the growth enterprise that goes with an enterprise like yours. What other issues or conditions are there that you don't think are getting enough attention that people need to be more aware of?
Well, I think there may be a public misperception regarding commercial space. I think while it has been tremendous for all of the new space flyers to have flown this past year, sometimes in the media it's perceived as only billionaires get to go to space now. And we want to really change that impression so that people begin to understand that going to space in the future and working on a space station isn't just another destination for a job. It's another job location. So if I do manufacturing here on the ground of, say, fiber optics, my other opportunity could be fiber optic manufacturing on a low Earth orbit platform. Or if I do genetics research on the ground here at some laboratory, I also have the opportunity to do that genetics research in orbit, in low Earth orbit. So we want to make space a destination that people don't really think of as extraordinary, but something as an alternative to manufacturing here or doing research here on the planet. And in addition to a workplace, we also want to make it, a destination for people to go experience what it looks like to see the Earth from that venue and what it would, feel like to sleep on the ceiling and be in microgravity for, a few days at a time. It could be, the holiday that you save up for, maybe a couple of years and get to go do something, extraordinary like that. So we hope that people begin to understand that this is the new norm and that this will be the inevitable future of the human race to expand out into low Earth orbit.
Stakeholders and partners are critical to any organization's success. Who's the stakeholder or partner that you are looking to connect with in 2022 that will help Sierra Space achieve its success?
Oh, we have, like I mentioned already, Blue Origin is critical because we're partnered together on Orbital Reef. They are also supplying the new BE-4 engines to ULA, and ULA is our launch provider for our first 6 missions. So those 2 partners, I would say, are most critical to us for the next year. And I did mention we're expanding in Florida, so working with the Kennedy Space Center and expanding our operations down there and that's also very critical. We'll also be testing at the NASA Glenn Research Center's Neil Armstrong Test Facility. So all of those partners we're working with this year to enable our success.
2022 has a really aggressive mission and manifest schedule. Is there a particular mission or event this year that you're really excited about?
I am probably most excited about that last destination that I mentioned in preparation for our ultimate trip to KSC, the Kennedy Space Center. We will go to the NASA Glenn Research Center's Neil Armstrong Test Facility. It's near and dear to my heart because I used to be the director at NASA Glenn, as you mentioned, and so we're going to undergo our environmental testing at the Glenn Research Center. So our thermal vacuum testing, our vibration testing, and EMI testing, and so we're really looking forward to getting there later this summer and going through all that preparation and passing those tests so that we can then head down to Florida to the Kennedy Space Center and prep for launch.
Dr. Cavandi, thank you for those thoughts and your time today and sharing what you and Sierra Space are doing and how you see State of Space. We're grateful for your leadership, and we look forward to seeing you at Symposium in April.
I look forward to seeing you there as well, and thank you so much for your time and this opportunity. It's been a great honor.
Well, hello, I'm Steve Eisenhardt from the Space Foundation, and we're joined for this next segment in the State of Space 2022 by Peter Beck, the founder and CEO of Rocket Lab. Peter, if you'd like to start by telling just a little bit about the company. You've had some great runs over the last several months, and then from there we'll roll right into, from your perspective, how do you see the state of space in 2022?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. No, look, it's been a wild 2021. That's for sure, and looking forward to 2022. Rocket Lab is a company, I guess we're most well known as a launch vehicle company. So we fly the Electron launch vehicle, flown 23 times now, over 100 satellites delivered to orbit. But the other part of our business is our space systems part, where we're building spacecraft. We have a mission to the moon for NASA later this year, a couple of missions to Mars. And we're also a fairly significant supplier into the space industry with our recent acquisitions of Solero, obviously providing solar panels, PSC providing separation systems, ASI software, and of course Sinclair Interplanetary providing reaction wheels and star trackers. So pretty much an end-to-end space company these days, and also publicly traded on the NASDAQ. With respect to 2022 and kind of what I see for the future of that, and obviously our company has a bunch of high-profile projects we're looking to execute on this year. But I think more generally as an industry, I think there's a lot of kind of things that are going to occur, and I think it's going to be a tremendously exciting year for the industry. There's a number of business kind of plans that are going to be proven. And a number of really exciting ventures and also spacecraft and satellite launched.
Great. Well, looking ahead, what would you consider to be the biggest challenge or challenges facing your operating environment that will require the most attention and resources to address?
Yeah, look, COVID is everyone's sick of it, but it's definitely a huge constrainer, whether it be on supply chain side or just for us, getting and moving around the world, delivering our customers and our customers' payloads. It continues to be a real challenge. And I think more broadly for the space industry, there's so much growth in the space industry that talent is a real throttle for everybody. So I think not just for us, but for everybody, the growth and movement of talent around the world is going to be really, really critical.
We've seen over the last year a lot of attention generated on space, a number of high-profile things and activities all the way around. What's the issue or condition that you think is not getting the public attention that it deserves?
Well, we've always been pretty forward-leaning on this one and publicly boisterous on it, and that is orbital debris. I think there's a lot more work to be done there, especially as more and more mega constellations are launched. Orbital debris is really the one thing that there is not a global agreement on and a global plan that everybody can work to. And I think it has the potential to be a real handbrake on the growth of the space industry. So that's something I certainly hope that this year gets more attention, and we don't find ourselves in situations that were totally avoidable.
Great. Well, as we work through the space industry, we always talk about partnerships and stakeholders, and I would be curious who you kind of consider the stakeholder or partner that you or your organization needs in 2022 to achieve success.
Well, I think there's a number of them really. Obviously it's very hard to be a successful business without customers, and customers put such tremendous faith in a launch company to ensure that their payloads arrive safely. So customers are always our number one priority. But also, in order to be successful, you need to have a great team. So continuing to expand the Rocket Lab team is going to be critical for us this year as well. And of course, as a publicly traded company, we need great shareholders. So those kind of three things, I think, are critical to pretty much most companies.
Well, with a number of exciting things, looking ahead, but is there an anticipated mission or event that you and your organization are most looking forward to as we go into 2022?
Oh man, now you're asking me to pick favorites. I mean, we have so many
Absolutely.
exciting things going on. I mean, jeepers. So I mean, first off the rank is probably the Capstone mission to the moon for NASA. That's going to be a tremendously exciting program. It's been a huge program within the company, to get us to the point of getting a vehicle and a spacecraft ready to launch to the moon. I think that's gonna take center stage for a while. Bunch of big neutron developments occurring this year, so that will be exciting. And some pretty major moves from our space systems group as well. So so many tremendously exciting things going on, but I think those are probably going to be the highlights.
Well, thanks a lot, Peter, and we appreciate your time today and joining us from across the pond there. Any kind of final comments you'd like to offer in wrapping up today's session?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, here's to 2022. I think it's going to be a tremendously exciting year, not just for us, but for a large part of the industry. And let's get some stuff in orbit. It's going to be fun.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for joining us today.
We're now joined by Chris Cunnstadter, who is Global Head of Space at AXA XL, a leading international insurance provider where he manages the space underwriting team and is actively involved in all aspects of AXA XL's space activities. Those include technical, financial, and actuarial analysis, coverage design, claims handling, industry outreach, and business development. With over 3 decades of experience, Chris is a recognized leader in space risk management issues. Chris, we're really grateful to have you with this year's State of Space program. Chris, from where you stand as a risk management leader in the space community, what is today's State of Space?
Well, Rich, I just want to say it's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and to talk about the State of Space this year. From where we sit as an insurance company, it's a very exciting time. There are a lot of new things happening. New technologies, new applications. There are also some new threats, such as a heightened concern about collision risk in space. But from where we stand, the state of space is quite strong. There's so much innovation. There's so much investment. We really feel that it's a tremendous time to be involved in the space business. And I've been involved in the space business for a long time. I've never seen as much activity as we've seen recently, and we expect to see this year.
Chris, you talked about the threat of collision, which obviously is growing with more participants in the space ecosystem. But what are some of the other big challenges that that AXA XL and other insurers like yourself are facing in 2022 that deserve more attention?
Absolutely. That's a very good question. And space insurance is a very small backwater almost of the broader insurance world. Insurance companies in general are concerned about things like pandemics and infectious diseases, climate change and extreme weather, cybersecurity, geopolitical instability. So there are some very big concerns among insurance companies that they really want to ensure don't adversely affect our companies, the insurance companies in this field. From the viewpoint of space insurance, we do see the threat of more failures because of the introduction of new technologies, new launch vehicles, new types of satellites. So we're really, along with collision risk and the increased risk of a catastrophic collision in the space environment, those are probably the main issues that we're facing. The increased potential for failures and the increased potential for collision risk.
Are there any other issues or conditions that pose risk that you see in 2022 that deserve more attention?
Interesting question. We're also looking at commercial human spaceflight, and obviously that's taken off quite dramatically in the last 12 months, and we expect it to further grow this year. So from the point of view of commercial human spaceflight, we need to understand not just the risks, but also what the exposures are, what types of issues could there be that could cause insurance to be invoked for commercial human spaceflight. And it's not an easy issue to solve. You have multiple jurisdictions where spaceflights take place. You have multiple technologies, all sorts of things that really make commercial human spaceflight exciting, but a little bit concerning for us to make sure that we understand the issues.
Partners are always critical to the success of any organization. Who's the partner or stakeholder that you're looking to connect with in 2022 that will ensure more success for you and AXA XL?
Well, in the same way that there's no single challenge, there's no single stakeholder that we're really anxious to engage with. We are very closely engaged with the U.S. government, with all aspects, all portions of the U.S. government, and with international governments and space agencies. So I think working with those entities is going to be very important for us, because we need to make sure that there's a very strong focus within among those agencies and governments on the sustainability of the space environment. It's an environment that is being used much more than it ever was. Certainly, we've seen in the last 2 years the number of satellite launches and satellites deployed has just been very dramatic. So we really need to make sure that we engage with those agencies and governments, also with industry. I've been in the business long enough to know that we really need to have a very smart industry. So I'm always happy to try to offer any insights I can give. So we do try and engage in outreach and industry outreach, and really focus on the topics that are of most concern to everyone involved in the space environment.
Final question, Chris. In a year full of a very aggressive manifest, lots of promising missions, what's the one event or mission that you're looking forward to this year?
Boy, there's so many. It's certainly, we're very excited about the launch of the Artemis 1 mission. We're anticipating that with a lot of excitement to see the SLS and Orion actually lift off. We're very excited about that. But really, there's no single event that we're most looking forward to, because we ensure virtually 50% of all space activity, of all launches and all satellites that are launched. Every time a launch goes off, we're kind of holding our breath and fingers crossed.
Chris, we're grateful for your time. We're grateful for your participation in this year's State of Space program. We look forward to seeing you at Symposium this April, and thank you and AXA XL for what you do in the global space ecosystem. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Rich.